I think he's a man that doesn't need much of an introduction, but just to give you a little bit of background information about Charlie, he is a scientist. He was trained in physics. He's a professional surfer, an avid golfer, and also a very successful entrepreneur. And in case anyone is living in a bubble, just sold his company Embryo to Konica Minolta for $1 billion. So he's been very busy, as you could imagine. Before we dive in, I just want to acknowledge everyone in the Dean's office for their incredible help, Shannon and her team, for all the effort that they put into this. As you can imagine, it takes a lot of work and a lot of behind-the-scenes efforts to make this a success. So let's give them a warm round of applause as well. Okay, and I know a lot of you are wondering why we have these lays around our neck, and there's an important reason for that. It turns out that Charlie owns a place on the island of Kauai, and we thought it would be fun to do something a little bit light and airy this time, so that's why we decided to do this Hawaiian theme. And afterwards, we have a tiki bar set up on the other side of this wall, and we have a Hawaiian theme music. And Hawaiian themed food. And if you're nice to Randy in the Dean's office, he'll even do a hula dance for us, because he's a professional hula dancer. That part's true. So you need one of these to get in there. So anyway, thank you all for coming. I know how busy everyone is. I think this will be a really great opportunity for the students here and for the faculty and staff to really delve into the mind of a man who has been wildly successful, perhaps even more so than he may have originally hoped for, right? Right? So, as you'll see, Charlie's incredibly down to earth. He's I think truly embodies a surfer attitude. Every time he calls me, he's like, "Hey, dude, how's it going?" So there's no formality here. So we'll start at the beginning, Charlie, okay? And you've told me that you've gone through peaks and valleys in your life. You've been rich, you've been poor. I think a famous actress once said, "I've been rich, I've been poor, rich is better." Right?
Rich is better. Rich is a lot better.
You agree with that, right? So let's start with the bad times. I mean, I think people would be surprised to know that you actually slept in your car as a college student. Right?
I did sleep in my car as a college student. So I'm a high school dropout. I don't know if people fully appreciate that. I just left one day, kind of was angry at a teacher actually, and literally just flipped the desk over and never went back. You know, my dad told me if you ever get into a UC campus or a good school, that he would pay for everything. So, you know, I sobered up after about 6 months of my friends going to school and me being at the beach all day. And I went to Saddleback in junior college and started taking physics, got interested in physics. And you know, at some point I got into school and made my way and was the man, right? I was figuring I was gonna be going to school in style, and my dad drops me off in the first quarter and says, "I paid all your bills for the first quarter, you know, deal with it." And I'm like, "What?" He goes, "You know, figure it out, be a man." So, you know, I had a girlfriend, and you know, was whatever. She was helping me out, and then one day I literally woke up on a park bench in the middle of the night and was like looking up, and it was one of those nights where, you know, it's like cold and there's clouds are moving fast and the moon's out. And I just remember thinking, you know, I was so bitter at my dad and angry at my dad, and everything is my dad's fault, and everything somebody else's fault. And it just occurred to me somewhat, for some reason, that I breathe the same air as my dad. I breathe the same air as everybody else. Like, I must be the biggest pussy in the world if I'm crying, right? If I'm such a man, why don't I go up there and help everybody else? Why am I not helping him out, right? So that started all of this, and I just figured it out.
So your dad has played a big influence in your life, both positive and negative, obviously.
Fathers and sons, right?
Right. So we heard that side of it, but your father has told an interesting story to you, which you've retold at the commencement ceremony. So for those of you who don't know, Charlie was the biosci commencement speaker about a year ago or so, 2016, I think, our commencement ceremony, and he was a resounding hit. I have to say, I've never seen a speaker when he was walking down the aisle at the recessional, all of the students were jumping all over themselves just to high five him as he was walking by. It was really a cool experience. Of course, Charlie was a little, never happy with himself. He's like, I didn't do a good job. I want to come back. I want to redo it. But he really nailed it. But you told the story where your father told you something about you have 2 hands, 5 fingers on each one, and you could do something selfish or selfless. So
I put my dad up there, something that he would say, but it was kind of sort of an idea of mine, actually, but it seems to me that, right, everybody has compassion in them, and everybody also has greed in them, right? And these things are things that civilization or pressure from people can talk you in and out of, or over accentuating one way or the other. But these are natural things. The biology and evolution and everything is pounded into all of us. Mm-hmm. So who the hell are we to deny these things? Right, but at the same time, we do live in a village, in a global village, and we should be moderate. So, I've always there are a few times in your life where you can be ruthlessly compassionate and ruthlessly greedy. Right. And that's not, to do that all the time would be, psychopathic or weird or against your own interests probably as well. But for me, I think it's a good thing, right? Who you marry, you should be greedy. Mm-hmm. On who you marry, right? Right. I mean, you hear stories. I'll go down to the bar. You'll hear stories about people who weren't greedy when they got married. So, it's sometimes it's good to be greedy. Mm-hmm. It's a fact. Yep.
It's like from that movie, greed is good, right?
Well, I'm no Ayn Rand fan, so Ayn Rand, I hate you. But no, I don't believe any of that stuff. But it is a natural instinct in human beings, right? Walking is a natural thing. Would you not walk for some reason because there's escalators or something? I mean, it's a natural instinct, a natural impulse. Right. It's there for a reason. Mm-hmm.
So you had a very interesting upbringing, and you were a high school dropout. You slept in your car a little bit. You obviously went on to get a bachelor's degree, and then you went on to graduate school. And what happened there?
No, you have my timeline all wrong. Okay. I love this.
All right,
I woke up on a park bench, scared out of my mind that I was a sniveling poor guy, and I got a job waking up at like 3 a.m. and making bagels. Me and this Mexican guy, Luis, would go in there and I'd boil them and he'd bake them, and then they'd ship them all around San Diego. And this was my job, and I saved up money enough to buy a suit. Like 3 paychecks in, I got a suit, and I went into Scripps Research Institute, and I just went to the neuroscience building because I didn't know anything, and I just figured there's not much physics jobs around here, but there's biology everywhere. Mm-hmm. And I just went to the Scripps and snuck past the security guards, thinking that whoever the security. Lo and behold, after I worked there, I realized the security was kind of a joke. But I thought I was being clever, and I get past and I go to the top floor, golf course side, middle of the building, because I figured whoever had that lab had to be the most badass scientist in town. And I just walked in there and just said that to him, and he told me to come back and do the dishes, and I didn't know what I was getting paid, and I didn't know what I was supposed to dress or what I was supposed to wear or what I was supposed to whatever, but I didn't even know what kind of science they did. Mm-hmm. But I came back and started doing dishes, and I was good in the lab. I'm an ace in the lab. So when, and I was just like, wow, I'm naturally good at something. Holy crap. Right. Like, how lucky is that? So, almost immediately I became a hot hand. Everybody started pawning me for whatever. Do my mini preps, do this, do my southerns, do whatever. And I was just working 10-hour days. I mean, I know everyone works hard, but I think people would be shocked at not just how hard I would work, but the persistence of it. 7 days a week, not even an issue, right? All I could think about was I don't want to be poor again. I don't want to be destitute. I don't want to be hanging out there to die again. Right. And so all I did was just kept grinding and grinding and grinding. And it was the funnest thing I ever did, I got to say. Learning how to surf was fun. Mm-hmm. Learning science was fun. Wow. Yeah. So, that was, it's fun.
Yeah. So as you can imagine, when Charlie does something, he throws himself into it completely, 100%, right? And so I think you can pick that up. And I think he told me on the way over here that he lost a spleen as a result of surfing, right? And I don't know how you could lose a spleen off of surfing, but I think he landed on a jetty.
I landed on a jetty rock. Yeah. Got popped.
Yeah.
Yeah. Trying to get waves. I was having such a bad session that time too. I was out there with some pros, the photo shoot, and I paddled deep because I couldn't catch a wave. I kept seeing all these guys catch waves around me. I was like almost crying. I couldn't catch a wave. And then out of nowhere, I see a perfect one come, so I paddle over there and I catch another one, and I just got flopped. It just got popped. And my surfing career was kind of done, actually.
So how do you go from that to starting a company? What was the vision that you had at that time that made you believe in yourself and that you thought it was going to be a successful company?
I don't know. I kind of just thought, right, you have visions of being Bill Gates or you have visions of being a big rich guy, right? But you don't ever really think about that, really. For me, I just knew that I kept working hard and old men were making money, right? And I'd been introduced to raising money and seeing some of the companies at Scripps at that time. Johnson & Johnson had donated a bunch of money and they had rights of first refusal to all these patents. And so all of these work kind of came due at once. So all these professors were running around starting companies because Johnson & Johnson couldn't absorb all the patents. And so I was introduced to this sort of wallflower in the back watching and just going, this is how it's done. This is easy, And at some point I had a Nature paper as an undergrad, so I thought I was a hot shit I just said to myself, I'm gonna start my own company. I'm done with this. And it was funny because I was actually like a C- student because all I did was work in that lab. I realized, I lost my train of thought, but I just realized that instead of going to grad school where I was being recruited and that was always my intention to be a theoretical physicist or then it became be a professor in biology. This was my aspiration. But at some point I just realized that the stock market is high now. And my dad kept telling me there's going to be a bubble. They deregulated all the state laws. There's going to be a bubble. That wasn't a tech bubble, by the way. That was a deregulation bubble. But the stock market crashed. You remember when it crashed? It crashed and then it bounced for a while and it came back and then it really crashed.
Yeah.
I raised all the money for the company in that band right there, or to start the company, $500,000. And it was just, my dad was telling me, you may have the aspirations of getting your PhD and then starting a company or whatever, but money's free right now. And so you may not think you're mature enough or old enough. What choice do you got? Money's free right now. And he was right, money was free. I could go out there then, and everybody was, in the glow of Bill Gates and all these guys, and I'm very conscious of this. And the crazier and more scientific I could sound, with the more enthusiasm, people just write checks. And so I just go out there and just hit everyone hard. And it was never the guy that was showing off that he had money. It was always some dude at the bar that was being low profile that had 15 grand sitting around. Okay. And so I just figured all this out. I don't know, I just figured it all out.
So Kevin, make sure you remember that. I think there are several faculty here, they're trying to start up their own company, so this is invaluable advice. So I know when I visited Embryo for the first time, I was walking through and before I met any official people there, I was thinking to myself, oh God, what the hell does Embryo stand for? And I was trying to revisit all my molecular biology, trying to think of, is this some operon, is this some transcriptional factor? So why don't you tell us how you named Embryo?
Well, so we had the first investor meeting. That wasn't someone that I was drinking in college with. Was some older guys that were across the street from my dad's office in Irvine, at Hoff's Hut, and I was like freaking out. We had XXX everywhere in the business plan, and the big PPM. My dad was a lawyer, which is a huge advantage for me starting a business. But he had XXX in there, and we were going to do the Microsoft Word replace all once we figured out a name, and my dad's dog name was Embryo. And he kept going, just name it Embryo, dude. Just name it Embryo. I go, I hate that name. And every name I could think up, I'd check, and someone else had taken it. Right. And finally, I had like 5 minutes to go, and I said, fine, I'll just put Embryo. I'll change it later. So I go into Hoff's Hut and this and that, and I sell these guys. This guy writes a $60,000 check right on the spot, first check. And I look, I'm like, oh my God. And I go, why? What was it? He goes, well, you're intense and you're smart and you're crazy, and I love that. He goes, oh, but I like the name. So stuck.
So Ambry had an amazing ride, an amazing run. So for those of you who don't know, the company did better every quarter when Charlie was
Yeah,
running,
we were,
right?
so I wasn't the CEO for the last 3 years. I got cancer and took off, checked out, totally checked out mentally. But before that, for 17 years, I was a CEO, and we launched our product, I think in the third quarter of our business. Paul's sitting right in front of you, he might remember better, but it was the third quarter. But from that moment on, we never had a quarter that was smaller than the quarter before it.
That's
for
pretty
17
remarkable.
years. That was through 2 of the worst recessions in the history, and I don't know how many technology changes, at least 3 or 4 technology changes. And we, got rid of frills and extras like salary. I was never the highest paid person at the company, ever, I think, actually. Maybe at the very end, maybe, but I don't think I ever was. We just were dedicated to the cause, and we just, new machine comes out, buy it before anybody else has it, period. Doesn't even matter, I don't need proof of concept, who cares? Trust their marketing materials. You lose a couple $100,000, whatever, you lose a couple $100,000, time is more valuable.
Right.
So anyway, we just kept growing and growing and growing in these ways, launching product, launch, go, 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 go.
So, share with us what the mission of Ambry was. I mean,
that's interesting you say that, because everybody's interested in starting their own company. I hate mission statements. What's a mission statement? I want more. I want bigger. I want better.
right.
Right? What's the mission statement? It changes every day.
Right.
Right? But for me, I was a good lab tech, molecular biology lab. That was who I was. I'm not a biologist. I don't know anything. I feel insecure being in all your presence, frankly. But it's for me, I just wanted to just launch products that made sense for doctors. I mean, I couldn't believe, I come from a DNA sequencing lab, and in the clinic, no one was sequencing genes. How could you not sequence genes? These kids are sick.
Right.
Like, it's criminal. I mean, this technology is like 15, 20 years old, and we're not sequencing genes? And I started the business without fully appreciating that was what we were gonna do. And when I figured it out that nobody was sequencing genes in the clinic, it was just like, just launch as many as you can.
Right.
And so that's kind of what we did.
And then you almost risked it all, right? Because of the Myriad lawsuit. So can you tell everyone about that? 'Cause
Yeah.
That's a pretty remarkable story.
Yeah, we almost risked it all. So we were involved in patent fights early. So there's a little dirty secret about Ambry and a little dirty secret about my success, because I was ready to sell the company when someone offered me $20 million for it. I was like ready to go right then. And then there was this little thing I had to kind of tell my board members that was very kind of unsettling to everybody, that we were getting loaded up with cease and desist because we kept launching genes to sequence, and university IP offices, I don't think, maybe UCI did, I don't know, maybe they didn't, but university offices kept sending us cease and desist letters. We own this mutation, we own this gene, we own this gene. I had 15 people telling me that they own the CF gene. It was a ludicrous position. And so my father was a natural intellectual, I'm a natural intellectual, and my father and I get in these long debates about it. And he was looking back at the original Chakrabarty case in the Supreme Court, and he was saying that everyone had got caught in the way, the entire patent industry had got caught up with the idea that if it took the hand of man to create, that it was an invention. But there was a whole other criteria in the Chakrabarty case, that if it had to be markedly different than what's in nature. So we reasoned, after millions of conversations, we reasoned that if it was markedly different than what's in nature, what's created in these test tubes, then it wouldn't have any value. Right? The value is that it represents what's in nature. Right. That's why we're using it to diagnose. So I said that argument cannot be beaten, without corruption. Right. So let's talk to some of my father's political friends, and they said, corruption is the what everyone talks about. It's fancy, it's this and that. It makes everyone look clever in the coffee shops, but the reality is people in the Supreme Court are not corrupt. And so, I said, screw it, it's game on. So we risked it all. We were doing, I can't remember if it was 30 or 60 million a year at the time, but we were a significant company. We could have sold the company for hundreds of millions then. But it just pissed me off that I had all these cease and desist, so that was going to be a huge event in any kind of deal. And screw it, this is just wrong. And I was also thinking about the age of genetics. Genomics was going from a single gene industry to multi-gene panels, and we were the company that was making this happen. And it occurred to me, okay, cool. We were pissing everybody off with one gene. Are you right? What's going to happen when we're launching 20 genes or 30 genes or 50 genes or even whole exomes? Right? Is every university going to say that they own 100% of the exome 15, 20, 30, 50 times over? How's this tenable? It's because there was a flaw in the basic logic that the entire patent industry suffering from groupthink. Smart people are very good at suffering from groupthink. Yeah. And so, we screw it, let's do it. Mm-hmm. It was the coolest thing I ever did, maybe.
Were you scared at all?
Yeah. Was I scared? The day that we launched, there was this crazy fanfare. Humberto's back here. Humberto didn't get permission for the record of this, but he put this, my cousin Mike went to the Supreme Court and took pictures of it in the middle of the night when they were doing construction. So it looked like there was this big, this famous graphic that we made. It looked like it was all PowerPoint or whatever, Photoshop, but it was actually just a photo. Mm-hmm. And Humberto put it on the home screen of the website, said, "Your genes have been freed." Big picture of the Supreme Court, look at all cool. And the amount of response that we got was like shocking. And at the time, one of the guys, Adam for client services, he goes, "Hey man, how does it feel?" I go, "You know what? I've gone on playgrounds and I've walked up to bullies and cracked them before. I just feel like I cracked a bully because these guys that we were fighting were the biggest bully there was, and the scariest, biggest machine. And I never really was scared. And when they sued us, I remember that got me a little jittery, mm-hmm. no doubt, that when the actual lawsuit showed up. But I wasn't really scared until the day of the first court proceeding. And I was outside, and I was with Aaron, and none of their lawyers are here. None of them are here. And I see, we're in their home turf in Utah, and I see this huge line, maybe 50 lawyers long, coming across the street, walking down to the courthouse, and I'm like, that can't be them. Tell me that's not them, right? We've got my team of 4 guys, And here they come, and they just started looking at me smug. "We got you, we're gonna kill you." And I was scared out of my mind. And we went in there, and it's never fun to listen to a lawyer make an argument against you, no matter what. You can be innocent. A lawyer arguing against you, you feel guilty, right? and here I'm listening to this argument, and I'm like, oh my God, this is like we're dead. I just wasted all my shareholders' money. Everyone's gonna try to kill me. I'm not gonna be able to show my face in Laguna Beach ever again, So we went out and just got pissed drunk that night, thinking that we had just lost everything. And then just conversing at the bar, we started realizing every argument that we keep bringing up about what they said was just kind of flaky. Right. And then finally our lawyers catch up to us, and he's like, "Dude, we got this, dude. That was all they had."
Yeah. Oh, here's the art.
So,
the picture you're talking about.
There it is.
Your genes have been freed.
So they had so anyway, I was scared, but also very liberated. I felt like I had found my place in the world with the company. Mm-hmm. And I felt like I had been a brave enough general to make a move with it instead of just sit on it. Right. And that makes me proud. That'll always make me proud.
Right. Good. I mean, it changed the course of science, right?
Imagine what would be happening now. You hear about kids being diagnosed with exomes, and all you guys are running around exomes this, genome this. None of that would be possible. Right. None of it. Yeah. Multi-gene panels, none of it would be possible. And the price point for genetics would be growing weird around Wall Street ideals, not around the ideals of people like us that should control this science, that should control this industry. Right. No, I'm very proud of what we did.
So we'll open it up for questions in a couple minutes. Just a couple more points I think that we need to talk on initially with Charlie, and that is, you alluded to this earlier, you had cancer. You were very young, and you had stage 4 prostate cancer. Yep. Can you maybe?
I was 42 years old, which was the youngest person anyone had ever seen at UCI for that kind of cancer, let alone stage 4. So, that was pretty brutal, and it was kind of a weird thing. I had my first child. We had won this big case, and we had stabilized, sort of semi-stabilized the lab. We got inundated, for the record. We had 800% growth in a day, literally, it was insane. It was weird. It was like I'd finally had, after all of this grinding, after 30 years or whatever of just nonstop, I finally had a little bit of money for the first time. I finally had a little bit of breathing room, and then boom, I get hit with cancer. I thought, maybe I'm not supposed to be on this earth or something. But we beat it, and it was weird when it happened though. Embryo was everything in my life, and it was all I cared about and all I thought about. And I dreamt Embryo. It never left me. It still is like a plague on me, really. But once I was told I had cancer, Like the second that doctor told me I had cancer, I just fell out of love with everything, kind of, and it just became my singular focus. And you know, so that was about 3 years ago, and I completely mentally checked out of everything and beat it.
Good. So we should give him a round of applause for that. That's pretty remarkable. So let's talk about the sale of the company. How did you find Konica Minolta?
Well, first off, I should say, because everybody here a lot of people here are starting to think about starting their own companies, don't skimp on the lawyers, whatever you do, and don't skimp on the lawyers. Everybody skimps on our lawyers because of some cultural bias. But the truth is from all the business people that are out there on that side of the world, those are like the intellectuals of that world, of that side of the campus. And you know, get a good lawyer that you could talk to. Screw the title, screw the name of the firm and the prestige and all that stuff. Who cares? Get a lawyer that you could talk to. Let them put you through boot camp. Because understanding securities law before you raise money is something that my dad pounded into me. That was extremely, extremely, extremely valuable in every conceivable. I don't know how I would have started a company without a lawyer. First off, but that's a prelude to the sale, because you know, my father wasn't a corporate lawyer. But when it came time to sell the company, we were super organized and ready to go. We had always paid for audits. We had always paid for the things that people like me hate paying for, and it always was painful for me. Paul's shaking his head. He made us do audits. But it was the best thing because we were already organized. So make sure if you're going to start a company and you intend to sell it or do an IPO or whatever, you're organized. And organized doesn't mean your QuickBooks is filled out and all that. Organized is a profound thing, and you should understand it. And you should understand the law and the history behind some of these laws, because it'll make sense when you're actually pitching an investor in a bar. So that's one thing. But how did I find them? Well, when we were ready to sell, I was still on cancer therapies, but you know, it was time. And it was kind of weird. I came back, and one of my longest employees, one of my best employees, she asked me to go to lunch right when I got back. She never asked me to go to lunch. And I'm like, okay, something's up. And she gets in the car, and she just typical to her, honest, best employee ever. Says, you know what, I'm burnt out. Everyone I think is just tired. It's been a grind, Charlie. And I went, you know, it has been a grind. And so, you know, I'd already started the process, but that just made me convinced it was time. And we just hired bankers. And the bankers found Konica Minolta. I didn't find Konica Minolta, but I knew when I met them, I liked them. And I knew some of the groups I was expecting to like, I didn't like. And some of the groups I expected I wouldn't like, I loved. They were one of the ones that I was like, why are we even meeting with these guys? And I loved them, they were great. So we found them through the bankers. I think if you're organized and you're ready and you haven't cut corners, I think it's easy to sell a company, frankly.
Yeah. Do you regret it?
I don't know if I regret it. I miss everybody that I used to work with. They were my whole life. And I was a hall walker. I did not think my job was making decisions. My job was sifting through information and being a punk in the hallways and having fun. Thinking about things profoundly and deeply, always. Do I regret selling the company? I don't regret selling the company. I regret that I got cancer. I regret that life threw that play at me. You know, I don't think I had a choice because the company relied on me so much, and it's not that I had lost interest in the company, I had just lost my heart, and so I needed to sell it. Regret's a weird thing. I mean, regret's a sort of a human idea. I don't know how to even answer the question. I don't know if I regret it or not. I don't think I do. I'd have to think about that.
So just to be clear for everyone, you're cured of your cancer.
Well, I mean, when you're a cancer patient, you're never really cured, right? But I mean, it's undetectable.
Undetectable.
Yeah, it's undetectable, so that's good.
All right, let's open it up for some questions from the audience. We have a couple of mics out here. We'll start up in the front row.
Hi, Bruno Mesa from the School of Business. So you talk about get a new technology, put in the money, and you also talk about don't cut corners. I think those are great perspectives, but they're also really capital intensive. What advice would you give on like
Why did you just
raising
make the
capital?
presumption that it was capital intensive?
Well, because
That's curious.
You got to be spending money on the lawyers.
Well, I mean, we started a company with $500,000. We only raised $1.5 million for all of Embryo.
All right.
How much capital do you need? I mean, it's, you know what, it's I don't mean to be confrontational, but a little bit. I mean, because there's kind of a presumption that you need 5 or 10 or 20 million to start a business. I mean, what planet are we on? You know, right? There's companies out there around the world that start on nothing, right? You think there's some guy in Jakarta who has a pizza chain, right? How much money did he start with, right? I think the reason that people presume that it's capital intensive is because they don't want to work. They want to hire people to do things. They want to pay themselves, right? I mean, honestly, right? And right, it's not that capital intensive unless you look at it that way, right? It's about being a punk. It's about dollar number one. Everyone's always asking me, what's the vision, this and that. Screw being sexy, screw being hot, screw your story, screw thinking about your stuff on stage. Dollar number one. How do you make dollar number one? If you think about it just in that ruthless, I'm a rodent, I want dollar number one. You start thinking about it in those terms, it's not that capital intensive. It just depends what you're trying to do. Building a drug may be different. But you know, some things, it doesn't necessarily need to be capital intensive.
Thank you.
Yep.
Okay.
Hi, I'm Charlie Rainey. I'm a friend of your father's.
Where's Charlie Rainey?
Right here.
I love Charlie Rainey.
I was there your first month with your father.
She was.
And talk about starting your business. You found the least expensive rent. You threw a mattress on the floor and slept there. And when you were looking for people to test their blood, you had all the Harley guys downstairs. And if your father, told me the truth, which
it's true.
The Harley guys said, sure, anything you need, Charlie, you can test my blood for your lab.
So yeah, it's really funny because everybody always goes back to you lived in your office for 2.5 years. I did. And this sounds like, oh my God, that's such a sacrifice. But for me, I was like, dude, I finally got a shower. Right? There's a lot of stories. I don't know if I cut off your question or not, but there's a lot of stories about all that, and there's a lot of romance about it, and there should be. But we didn't have money. There was a weekend when we had just started making cash flow, and we were paying off vendors, and there was a weekend I forgot to pay myself. I didn't have any money, like zero, and there was money in Christy's change. Christy was sort of like our bookkeeper, phone answerer, everything. I grew up with her, so it was like, it's kind of a little club. And she had change in her little Mickey Mouse bowl. And I kept staring at that change because I hadn't eaten. I didn't eat all weekend. I just let that change sit there. It's a funny thing with raising money. It's how much money do you need to spend? It should be a minimum.
Exactly.
So you've had a lot of mentors in your life. One of them is right here, Paul Ballaleese. I know he's been a good advisor to you throughout the years. He's a great advisor to me too, right? So talk about maybe the kind of advice you've gotten along the way and the role of mentors. I mean, there are a lot of graduate students here, and obviously they can benefit from good mentoring, and everyone can, not just students.
Yeah, mentoring, that's interesting that you bring that up. Paul has been a mentor. I mean, it's funny with me, I have the ability to think for myself very much. So when you say mentor, I never hang on anyone's words, but I notice things about people. I mean, with Paul, for instance, some of the things that I see in Paul that he hasn't told me, but some of the things I've observed have been some of the lessons I've absorbed more than Paul probably could appreciate, actually. And
Paul, could you mind standing up so everyone can see you?
But yeah, I think it's important. I think it's very important to notice things in people, and that can happen from anywhere. I've never been caught up in prestige in life. I never really gave a crap about, I mean, except for Dean, of course. But, I mean, I don't really give a crap. Just look in someone's eyes is more important than anything else. And so I always just notice things, and if I notice something in anybody, and I take some admiration or some fascination to it, that's someone who's mentored me. I think that's sort of a good way to live. I don't believe that people who've succeeded like myself have all the answers, right? I mean, everyone thinks I have this magic hand, and maybe I do, maybe I don't, but I don't think that I do. I don't think that I have a formula for success. I don't think mentors are perfect.
Right.
Yes.
The graduate students don't listen to that.
Think for yourself. I mean, if you want to be an entrepreneur, the number one thing is thinking for yourself.
Right.
And the number 2 thing is you better like what you do because it's not going to be easy. So you better like it. If you don't like it, you have no chance. Right. But thinking for yourself and not being caught up, it's like kind of maturing. Every time you've matured in your life, you've given up a bias that you had for whatever reason. Where'd that bias even come from? You get rid of it, you mature. Mm-hmm. I think the same thing happens in business and in everything else, in science and everything. I think it's an important thing to do, and you could peer into anybody and get an insight into anything. Mm-hmm. You never know where it's going to come from.
Okay, we have a question over here.
My name is Amy Siegel. I'm a retired OBGYN. And first of all, I really, really, really want to thank you for taking on Myriad because at the point that I retired, the BRCA testing was very expensive. Many people did not have the testing available to them because they could only do it through Myriad. And now it's more widely acceptable, more widely available, as well as the extended gene testing.
Yes.
And I think that that's so important. Maybe prostate cancer is not tested for with these, but breast, colon, etc., can be prevented. And it's just taking a little bit of blood. And by taking on Myriad, it's made it so much more available and accessible.
Yep. Thank you. Yeah, it's true. It's the science and the industry wouldn't progress without that having happened. And it's funny, they get the poster child for being the bad guys, but from my seat, the universities didn't exactly behave kosher either. And a lot of groups, patent troll groups, they were pretty tough too. No-name patent troll groups out of nowhere. So everyone always wonders about the development of Embryo. How come we didn't get into big markets faster? And the reason is because these cease and desist. If there was going to cost a university, a couple $100,000 to fight us, then I probably shouldn't make more than $50,000 a year on a product, which means I better have a lot of products. So it's just a calculation, actually. And it was also easier because you launch it and you're the only one who has it, so you don't have to advertise or sales reps or anything else. But now it's all of a sudden an industry. I worry that the Wall Street guys are gonna own it, right? They're subsidizing testing now to try to flush everybody out. I worry about it going from patent troll dominated to banker dominated, this industry, and the science, more importantly, because then there's just gonna be a whole other round of hoarding data, a whole other round of lack of progress when people are sick, right? I mean, you're right, and the value of the data in the end is gonna be meaningless anyway, because everyone's gonna have a set of data. So, yeah, I don't know. I appreciate your comment. There is another round coming up though, in this fight.
Okay, I had a
Amy?
question. Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm in biosci in Frank School. So you said you didn't have a mission statement, but I'm super curious. What did you tell people to get them to give you money? You must have had a really compelling argument.
No, not really. There was something you should know. So I grew up as a wallflower. I mean, I'm a guy who never spoke. Yeah, so it kind of seems weird now.
It's hard to imagine.
But I left science. I kind of flared out of scripts and was pissed, and I actually sold computers at a Best Buy for like 6 months, and I was actually their #1 sales rep, and I figured it out real quick because people come in and the management's telling you, oh, sell the expensive, the new ones, and here comes some person who's never turned on a computer before, and they want me to convince this person to spend $3,000 on a computer that's going to be outdated in 3 months. And I'd just be like, you don't know what you're doing. Just see the cheap one from last year, get that one, right? If you get good at it, you're going to want your own anyway. Come back in a year, we'll do you up, whatever. And I just became their top sales rep. And I realized, my father told me something in business about that when I first started that job. He said, you think business is going to be a poker game? It's going to be ruthless and tough and gnarly and political. And I think maybe big companies may have elements of that, and not universities, of course, but he said there's a lot of room in the world for an honest, hardworking young man, and he was right. And I think when I was selling people, I didn't really have an argument. I wasn't trying to connect with people like that. I just wanted to talk to them and let them know I knew what I was doing, and just flow with the moment. I never really no two sales pitches were ever the same. and they were constantly morphing and changing. I always just wanted to connect with the person that I was sitting in front of and not really have an argument. But the mission statement thing, I think, is a weird thing. It can corrupt the core energy of a company. It can corrupt the core energy of what everyone there is trying to contribute. People starting to second guess, oh, is this part of the mission statement? If you can make money, do it. What are we doing? If it's gonna make your life easier, do it. I mean, why do we gotta think so heady? It's not heady, it's just money. It's just volume, it's just business, just go, 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 go. So I never liked mission statements. I kind of found them paralyzing. I think the same thing I should say about raising money. Right? Everybody's ambition is to get a big VC or someone like me to come in and invest in their company. Be careful. Because people like me have been in around the trenches for 25 years. I know a few games to play on you if I need to. You don't want guys like me. You definitely don't want, I'm a nice guy. You don't want the VCs around, right? They will paralyze you. Imagine being pinned to my mission statement for 20 years I was running that company. Mission changed all the time. So anyway, it's a big thing. I never liked them just for that reason.
Okay, let's go over here. Lee?
Hi, great presentation. So I'm curious about two things. I guess one is what your initial product was and how it made money, and then sort of in that regard, what about health insurance? And I mean, it's still hard to get insurance companies to pay for genetic sequencing. So how has that influenced the development of your company over the years?
And who's the context of the questioner?
I'm Lee Bardwell. I'm in the Frank School.
Okay, yeah, fair enough. What was the question again?
How'd you make money?
So the first product was actually, remember, that company Council? It was actually the Council idea was my first product. We were going to sequence top genes associated with birth defects. And we didn't even launch the product, actually. We were still developing it. And we put it on a website. It was me building the website, and I just put it on. I didn't know what I was doing. And I had people calling me up, yelling at me for being so irresponsible. How could you do this? It's outrageous. So I just stopped it, and we were almost out of money. And I realized that cystic fibrosis sequencing, well, that was working pretty good in the lab. And I had a little birdie, lab person I used to work with in the lab up at UCLA was telling me that, I hear in the rumors the Roche is going to launch a 32 mutation panel, and it's going to be covered, and there's going to be blah, 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 and they have it all organized. I thought, mutation panel for CF? How stupid is that? They should be sequencing that gene. And then when a light bulb went off, right, I'm just going to launch and figure out how the people that are affected, can know about the company or know about the product. So we called the Cystic Fibrosis Foundation on a whim, just like that. Like literally we were talking, and then a minute later I was on the phone with Preston Campbell, the head of the CF Foundation. And he goes, and I go, hey, I'll do 2 free samples per clinic. And he goes, oh, that sounds awesome. And he sends an email out, and the next thing I know, I had a profitable business. So, I don't know. I don't know if that answers the question. The medical insurance thing, I don't know what's going to happen. I mean, I'm a little bit paid to not discuss the medical insurance thing. I do know, I think that everybody knows, just intuitively, maybe even if we're overestimating how much the genome and all knowledge about the genome is going to do for humanity, it's still going to be a rad thing to do for everybody. We need to do this. Medical insurance isn't the problem in the industry. The problem is innovation. Everyone's hoarding their data, right? What product has really been launched since the exome? What's gimmicky? It's just, there's no knowledge. We need more knowledge to have more products. The second that it's actually valuable to insurance companies, that we have something that we can actually save lives with and make their cost curves different, they'll pay for it, right? But until that happens, whatever. You just sound like another statistician with another report saying that you can save them a little bit of money. And that's a waste of everyone's time. That's why no one's getting their tests funded, in my opinion. You need real progress. You need real stuff. And it's not going to happen with data silos. The data silos are the issue of the industry, not insurance companies.
Okay, we have another question back, huh?
I just wanted to ask, I mean, obviously when you start a company and you do fundraising, you have a board of directors other than asking dad questions. Who was on your initial board of directors?
Yeah, that's an interesting question because I never looked at the board as a guide. right? I remember when Paul got on the board about 5 years in, Paul, we had our first board meeting and with this I had a proxy fight. It was kind of a fun thing actually, but Paul winds up on the board and he starts off and he goes, "What the hell you want us to do, Charlie?" Board of directors are there to make sure you don't do anything stupid. Board of directors aren't there to tell you what to do, right? You're the expert, you're the pro, be the pro. Grow up, make the calls, right? Board of directors are there to make sure that, right, if I'm ever on somebody else's board, I'm not gonna sit there, call them and go, "Oh, this and that, I told you so, or I know better." But if I see them doing something that's criminal, or something that's weird, or some accounting thing that's stupid, you bet I'm gonna be on the phone freaking out. The expert's the guy in the chair. It all rests on him. The board is just there to make sure there's no mistakes. At least that's the way I always looked at it. And people who look at their boards as proxies for decision making, I think they're hiding from the world and they're looking for a finger to point at. And that's no way to be a leader.
Okay, any other questions from the audience? Over here in the front.
So I'm a biochem and molecular biology major.
Uh-oh.
And I used to work in the pharmacy field for about 10 years before I decided to get out of that because it's ridiculous. So I was wondering, like, with your company or like genetic type companies, are there actually opportunities for people like me that are undergrads to like maybe start at entry level and work their way up?
For sure there are.
With interest?
For sure there are. For sure there are. And I think that the industry, had a period, partially, maybe even in large part, us at Embryo helping push along, where we were really maturing quickly. And now I feel like it's kind of fragmented and it's kind of lost a little bit. But that can't last for too long. Right? The power of the genome is going to happen. Nothing can stop a good thing. It's like these tariffs on solar panels, right? Solar panels are the solution. So even with tariffs, it will happen one way or the other. It's the same with the genome. And I think when we start to get back on a positive trend as an industry, I think that an innovative, positive trend, I should say. I mean, some of the people in the industry are right in front of me, but yeah, I think that it'll explode again, and I think that it'll go into a hyper growth, and I think there's not going to be enough hands on the problem. So I think that there's a lot of opportunity in the future. I think we need a real innovation to pop it, kick it going again. We need some forward momentum again. Right? Because everyone's just buying a next-gen sequencer and a financial calculator and trying to convince investors they know how to do math, and that's kind of where the industry is. Again, it will break out of that mold and get moving for real again. And when it does, I think it's going to be awesome.
There's a question in the back, on the right side.
Yeah, it's a kind of a short question, but to see what's your view in the future. There's a lot of coming, personalized medicine, gene editing. And you had cancer, so that kind of changed the way you see stuff. Do you wanna kind of ride that wave? You wanna see it from the beach? Do you wanna keep going?
I'm done. So it's funny. I have a lot of friends. You're telling me, "Oh, start a business." I mean, first off, I'm exhausted. I've been working, I think, harder than people could really imagine, actually. And absorbing the pressure so that everyone who worked for me didn't have to, for a long time. So first off, I'm done. But second off, I've seen a lot of people start the same business in the same industries a couple times. And I'll never forget, one of them is an investor in my company, this guy, and he was telling me, "Oh, I'm gonna do the same thing again, I'm not gonna make the mistakes." And after 4 or 5 years, I hadn't seen him, and I saw him, and CEOs sometimes open up, sometimes. And he tells me, he goes, "Man, it was so much harder the second time." He goes, "Don't ever start the same business in the same industry." And I take that to heart. I've moved on. I moved on from surfing. I've moved on from physics, and I've moved on from biotech. And I've moved on. And I also saw something when I was an undergrad and I was working in the lab. My PI was impressed. I could work with any postdoc in any lab I wanted. I was a real honor. I even had a budget. It was awesome. What undergrad gets that, right? And you know, so I picked this woman. She was working on her own daughter's disease. And I'll never forget one night, in the middle of the night, we were both sort of night owls, and she screwed up a plate of mini preps. I mean, who cares, right? That happens all the time. But I could see the grind on her face, you know, working on something so intense to her. So people are always surprised that I don't know anything about my own prostate cancer. But this is conscious, right? I'll freak out if I start thinking about it. I don't want to be around it. I don't want to be around the solution. I don't want to be around the problem. I think my life is better if that's the way it is. So, but I do think that the future is vast and big, and I do think cancer is going to be beat, and I do think that every disease is going to be beat. Frank, on the way over here, was talking about how, you know, in the future, right? People, the technical problem that we haven't solved is death itself, right? The only people that should be dying are trauma victims, and there might be some physicist that would come up with some nuanced argument on why that's not technically the way, but that's the way. And right, it's just a matter of time before the entire biological sciences is studying beetles again, right? So, you know, it's. I do think this will happen, and I think that there's going to be vast fortunes made in the field. I just know for my part, I don't want to be that much a part of it.
So I'll ask the last question, I guess, and that is, one day you go to bed, the next morning you wake up, and I think you told me you wake up as the 31st richest person in Orange County.
How the hell did that happen? I'm a punk.
What's that like? How do you process that? What was the first thing you bought, you know, with all that money?
I didn't buy anything. I haven't spent any money.
I know. I remember a conversation you had, and you were thinking about buying your wife a Tesla, and you weren't sure if you were going to do that.
She didn't want it.
She didn't want it.
So no, she bought me a TrackMan for golf, and that's the expense. I went and bought sunglasses for the first time in my life. That was kind of weird. Yeah. But it's funny. It might be lost on me. I just don't give a crap about it. It wasn't ever really the reason that I did all this, and the fact that it happened is kind of, I don't know, whatever. You know, I guess it's good, but it's weird. I will say it's weird being hit up all the time, and it's weird. It's weird because, you know, maybe even especially childhood friends look at me differently now, which is uncomfortable, frankly. But I don't know. I never really intended for all this to happen. I just was building a company, and I was just being a punk with my friends, and we were just growing and growing. It really wasn't some grand scheme or something. It was just fun. I don't know how else to say it.
Paul?
Uh-oh. He can damage me. He knows all the secrets.
We have a microphone? Yeah, no.
Charlie started out with equity only. And not only equity only, but one class of stock. So he made the whole process very simple. You didn't have preferred stocks, you didn't have bonds, you didn't have all these other kinds of things that normally create a turmoil in the company. Therefore, it was a lot easier for him to progress. Secondly, is that the success of Embryo was totally because of his total ability to concentrate on a single process, and that is to create the best product that he could to save lives. Now, there's another story about that, is that the company was about $15 million in sales, and Charlie was probably just above the lowest levels of pay. So we decided to increase his salary from $60,000 to $120,000. And Charlie says, gee, maybe I could afford to rent a house now. So this goes on, and now we're growing a lot like farther ahead, and we're really getting ready to perhaps maybe think about selling the company. So I called Charlie one day and I said, look, you know, the amount of money you make, people from Wall Street is going to look at you and going to say, you're not a very good CEO because you're not making a lot of money. So I said, we need to increase your salary. So I go talk to the board and see what we can do, and we're going to double it. And he said, no, I don't want that money. No, you can't do this. So he says, hold on a second. Later, his wife comes on the board and says, Paul, we really don't need that money. He says, you know, we really can't accept that. I said, yes, you can. And we did. And so that is Charlie. He never got into the business because he was thinking he was going to make a lot of money. So if you want to start a business, think about what you're getting into it for. What is your primary purpose to start a company? And if you know what you're doing and you're going to spend the time to do it, you're going to be successful.
Well said.
Paul's a good board member, by the way.
So with that, we'll bring this to a close. I just want to remind everyone we have the reception just to stage right. And and I have a gift that I have to give Charlie to thank him. What do you give someone that has it all? So just a little Murano.
Oh, thank you.
Glass, something related to surfing. So thank you.
Thank you.
And so thank you for your honesty and for sharing all your wisdom with us. And he'll be around, so if you have any questions, come up, say hi. He's a very nice man, and he would like to meet with all of you. So thank you all.
Thank you.